Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There's good news and bad news. The good news is, if you have a look at your watches, 7:29, yeah, we're dead on time. So thank you all very much for turning up. The bad news is yet to unfold, hasn't it? I'm sure it won't be, and let's hope you're going to have an enjoyable evening, and thank you all very much for being part of another Extra Hope event. For those that don't know, from our guests outside and visitors, the monies that we raise on these occasions goes towards the Village Activity Fund, which is managed by our Residents Association Grants Committee. So we just raise the money and have fun, and somebody else spends it. How unfair. But there we are. Okay, as your programme says, it's the event of the year. It should have been 2016, but we got a little bit behind on rehearsals. So as it was an event for November, here we are, January. So therefore we'll be a little bit more polished, won't we? Okay, so to get things underway, I've obviously got to go through the housekeeping rules, regulations, policies, procedures and everything else that is part of village life. But I think, as you all know, that as we said previously, that if you do hear a continuous alarm, which is our fire alarm, there's no need to get up and rush to the exits. You will be, unless the fire is in here, you will be monitored to say it's time to evacuate or where we should go. And there are the fire exits, as you can see, marked on the side of the wall here and out at the back. The assembly point is in the front car park, if we can get to that area, but if we can't, we will be monitored to the back area. Smoking, as you know, we know smoking within the premises, but there is the smoking arbour just outside the doors leading onto the gardens. It's a 2-act show, lasting about an hour each act, depending if they remember their words. And at the interval break, which will last about half an hour, well, you'll hear the bell ringing. That's normally rung by our ex-headmistress Mavis with her school bell, so I'm sure you will be hearing that. I just wanted to say, because we won't have an opportunity at the end of it, to say pass my personal thanks on as the chair of Extra Hope. 2 areas of thanks to you for always your generosity. But behind this performance tonight, probably you're not aware of this, but 10% of the village are involved as residents in this performance this evening. 40 odd people, you know, it's a tremendous thing for everybody to get involved, and who knows, next year it may be a pantomime. Oh no, it may be. We'll just keep our eyes on the future to say what we will do. But I've got to say thank you to my team for putting the thing together. Without them, not too sure where we would be. Okay, that's enough for me. The programme says it's a variety show. Have you read there? It says entertainment through the decades. And those magical words, where did we hear those? But not necessarily in that right order. There could be a lot of that this evening. But to take us through it, we have a compere extraordinaire, and I'm going to have no more ado but to pass you over to Rodney. Thank you, Rodney. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our show. Tonight, we're going to take you back through the years, reminding you of some of the highlights and some of the less interesting, less welcome things we've seen in our lifetime. We'll bring you the best of the best in music, dance and film, and of course your very own stars on stage. For a very limited season indeed, we give you We've Seen It All. We're going to start with the 1940s. Many of us were growing up and living through World War II, with parents, uncles and aunts away from home, food rationing and the Blitz to cope with. It really wasn't easy, but on the plus side, Al Capone got shot, and a few more of us were born. Bob Hope made us laugh, and Vera Lynn sang The White Cliffs of Dover. For these early years, we give you a couple of songs you're sure to remember, and a sketch about the black market. First, let's listen to the harmony group from our very own Dawn Chorus. First of all, you're warned, don't go under the apple tree, and then you're going to need to get in the mood, because you're going for a ride on the Chattanooga Choo Choo. of us remember food rationing. Although we were probably, all of us, at an age where what that meant to us was simply a shortage of sweets and chocolates. Our mums and our aunties became very inventive with our gardens, and our allotments became very productive. This next sketch, with Sue Graham, with vocal accompaniments from Linda and Justine, should bring back some memories. Moving on to the 1950s. In the Far East, the Korean War had started. DNA was discovered, and the first organ transplant was carried out. Europe was already talking about the Treaty of Rome. Roger Bannister ran a mile in under 4 minutes, and Edmund Hillary became the first man to climb Mount Everest. Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley and Doris Day were on the cinema, and on the telly Franny Craddock was showing us how to cook. Annie Get Your Gun and Oklahoma were on the London stage, but best of all, we crowned a new queen, Elizabeth II, with her handsome young husband, Prince Philip. It was the best of times. Rock and roll, of course, was the in music of the day. Let's have some now. Here are our very own Shenley Rockers.
5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock, we're gonna rock. Around 12 o'clock tonight, put it right, show. Some fun, let's go. Rock, around 12 o'clock tonight, rock, 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 around the clock. Well, strikes two, saying boy, goes down, we'll go, rock, around the clock tonight, we're gonna rock, 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 baby, we're gonna rock around the clock when the chimes ring 5, 6, and 7, we'll be right in 7, and we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, 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 baby, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When it's 8, 9, 10, 11, 2, I'm going strong, and so are you. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, 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 baby, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
Remember radio? That's what we all did before the telly came along. The wireless, as we called it in those days, was everybody's friend. Programs like Mrs. Dale's Diary, The Archers, along with Gardner's Question Time, still going today, becoming quite addictive. We also had great comedy. Programs like Hancock's Half Hour, Much Binding in the Marsh, and Take It From Here. So now, from the inimitable Kenneth Horn's Round the Horn, here are John, Pat and David doing Julian and Sandy. George Booth was the intended victim for this sketch, but is unfortunately in hospital. We all wish him a very speedy recovery and have managed at great expense to get John Danes to step in. You'll forgive him, therefore, for reading the part.
Recently, when I celebrated my birthday, I decided to throw a party. Well, I didn't want trouble of catering for myself, so when I saw this advert in one of the glosses which said, Elior Caterers, we can handle everything. So I gave them a ring, and next morning, good morning.
Hello, Mr. Hall. I'm Julian, this is my friend Sandy.
We are your Elior Bernard caterers. That is to say, Jules and me. We can cater for your every function.
From your... You've lost me line then. From your hump ball right down to your intimate ado.
Just give us a free hand and we will give your friends a do they will never forget.
Now, what's the occasion?
Well, it's my birthday party. I'm 39.
Do you hear that, Sans? 39.
39 round the neck, more likely. So, I suppose you'll be wanting cake.
We could do something pretty bizarre in marzipan.
How's about a Dundee Jules?
Oh, yes, I can let myself go in Dundee.
He can really let himself go in Dundee, he can, Mr. Hall, he really can.
What, and do something provocative in a sponge? With a fruit filling.
Oh, how about in 3 tiers and with a motif?
Oh, what sort of motive?
Well, it depends on who you're associated with. Now, for instance, for Ringo Starr, we done a set of drums. And for Sterling Moss, we did a racing car. And for Sandy Shaw, we did a huge pair of feet in marzipan.
Glacé cherries, toenails.
Oh, no, just a simple cake. And what about the rest of the food?
Oh, it depends on what sort you have in mind. You can have your running, you stand up, or you sit down knife and fork.
Your stand-up fingers works out cheaper, Jules.
Yeah, I think a cold buffet would be better.
Oh, I suppose you want us to lay on a turkey?
Oh, I hadn't planned a cabaret.
Oh, it's bold.
It goes too far. Now, drinkettes.
Well.
What do you see there, Tree?
2 dozen bottles of eggnog for a start.
Well, I don't know anybody that drinks eggnog.
We do, Half-Face.
He loves his eggnog, does Jules. 3 eggnogs and he lets his hair right down. Don't you, Jules?
Yes, gin makes me maudlin.
And you don't want him maudlin all over your guests. He gets quite lachrymose on the gin, don't you, Jules? You had an experience in Bognor, didn't you?
Yes, very naff it was. Whenever I'm on the gin, it wells up inside me.
And up comes Bognor.
And we don't want Bognor coming up.
So, that's 2 dozen bottles of eggnog then.
I didn't know you were coming.
Of course we're coming. We wouldn't miss a party that Mick Jagger was at.
Mick Jagger? I didn't invite him.
Oh, we did. And, Rod Stewart. And that Mick Lavatory bloke. And, that Caroline Majorette.
You see, you've got to have your actual celebs if you want your picture in the glossies, like Village Life and Chatterbox.
Silly face in Chatterbox.
Oh, what about my other guests?
Oh, let's have a look at your list. Come here, Jules. Oh, we don't want him, he's too macho. And he's terribly dull, that one. And she's 80 if she's a day. No, they're out. They're all out.
But that only leaves me.
I'm sorry, Ducky, but you're out as well. With the sort of guests that we've invited, you just wouldn't fit in. Come on, Jules.
Well, of course I argued with them. And in the end they relented and let me come. But not as a guest. I was in charge of the cloakroom. But I made 30 bob, so I came out well off.
Let's move on now to the swinging 60s, the decade of change. Everything was sex and drugs. It was probably most people's favourite decade. President Kennedy got himself in and out of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Winston Churchill died. The Americans landed on the moon, and England won football's World Cup. Everywhere we heard the sound of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. On TV, we met Doctor Who for the first time. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho was the scary film, and My Fair Lady, The Sound of Music, and West Side Story graced the London stage. Sandy Shaw, you remember, won the Eurovision Song Contest. Here she is again.
love me madly, I'll gladly be there like a puppet on a string. Love is just like a merry-go-round with all the fun of the fair. One day up, then you're down on the ground. Next day up in the air. Are you leading me on? Tomorrow will you be gone? I wonder if one day that you say that you can. If you say you love me madly, I'll gladly be there like a puppet on a string. I may win on the roundabout, but I'll lose on the swings. In or out, there is never a doubt, just who's pulling my strings. I'm all tied up in you, but where's it leading me to? I wonder if one day that you say that you can. If you say you love me madly, I'll gladly be there like a puppet on a string. Like a puppet on a string.
That's the first time I've ever seen Alan pulling Sue's strings. Here are two more songs you'll all remember. Pat is going to sing Let There Be Love, and then Jill will take us back to those heady days of free love and flower power with If You Go to San Francisco.
Put it down. Can we start again? Come on, Martin. Please, Alan. Please, please. Get me breath back. Phew. Everything's going wrong. What do you know? Earlier. It's a comedy. Long leading. Let there be you. Let there be me. Let under the sea. I wish I could tell you. I'm not doing very well. Hey, Nessie. Tell you what, try Jill. Come here, Jill. Worked all right at dress rehearsal. I can love, but first of all, please let there be love. Let there be love. Let there be love. Ah, that's nice. We got there. Long lead out now. Oh dear. Can I come up?
Don't go to the toilet. Oh, good. Because I need you.
Now we're going to jump a few decades to the 2010s. In Haiti, a terrible earthquake took nearly 250,000 lives. Pakistan had some serious flooding, and a volcano erupted in Iceland. On the brighter side, our wonderful village was built. Will and Kate got married. London staged the best ever Olympic Games. Matilda and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels were popular on the London stage. The King's Speech was the best film, and Mad Men hit our TV screens. But you know, nobody can remember any of the songs. On TV, remember Dinner Ladies? Here now are Rita, Desi, Anne, Dawn, Mavis and Jean enjoying a tea break from Victoria Wood's popular sitcom.
Slowly release the pressure. And start tapping.
Oh, is this your full fat day?
Oh, it could be if I call Wednesday semi-skimmed. In fact, if I call today Sunday, I can have a Kit Kat.
It's a load of codswork, dieting. All that misery for what? You could fall under a bus tomorrow.
I could, you couldn't. You couldn't fit under a bus, you'd have to be jacked up. I'm not cursed with hips, fortunately.
Oh, we've come a long way, me and my hips.
Talk about contents may have settled in transit.
What are you reading, Twink?
Oh, it's a survey. The Good Love Guide.
Let's have a look. Blimey! I thought you meant furniture or something.
Well, I'm sanding down an old blanket box. I could do with an unusual knob.
Don't think you want one of them on your blanket box, darling. Look, that TV weather girly reader is showing us around a converted salt factory.
Well, it might give me some ideas. Let me have a look. Oh my God, I can't even look at it. I can't look at it. I thought you said it was knobs. I'm not letting you have a look at it, but put you on marriage guidance back months.
Well, you know, Keith told Ralph he's got much more of an effort in bed.
Well, I'm not surprised to spend the whole time reading Catherine Cookson.
Well, I don't, not the whole time. If it gets a bit exciting, I'll pop a bookmark in.
Is Catherine Cookson the one on the telly and it's all lovely and old-fashioned in round carriages?
No, that's Jane Austen. If they're in carriages and their bosoms are under their chin, that's Jane Austen. Catherine Cookson, there'll be a horse and cart and they get pregnant a lot and chop the heads off mackerel and it's always raining and their bosoms will be a lot lower.
Look, and the Jane Austen one, are they Shakespeare?
No, there's Dickens. Are you thinking of Dickens? Where they're all covered in warts and oh, Mr. Wishywell. That's Dickens. And Shakespeare, that's BBC Two. And they have robes on. And they never sit down and they run on. Have you ever seen them?
I don't know.
Yeah, they run on. What is it? Oh, you Duke of Wimbley Bobs and such and such and such. A body's fallen downstairs in her nightie. Okay, fair enough, off you go. Now that's Shakespeare. It's good.
She's a millionaire now, this weather girly Rena. Just pointing out some low cloud over Derby.
It's like those ladies, those fat ladies that cook. Oh, what are they called? They're fat, they're ladies, and there's two of them.
Two fat ladies?
That's them. I couldn't think what they were called. Oh, and they're very unruly, standing there with their curvy lip dangling over bits of woodcock.
I hear somebody talking about diet, rubbish diet. Well, I've certainly worked.
Through here.
Now, did anybody see the programme about bin men?
Oh, with Edward Woodward. That was brilliant.
No.
And did you know he was married to that woman out of Thingamabob? Some mothers do have them.
What do you mean, have?
You know.
No.
He goes under a lorry on roller skates.
Oh, Mr. Bean.
No, not Mr. Bean.
Ren.
Mr. Pastry.
No, Phantom of the Opera.
Ren. No, not that series. Just shut up. There's just been a series on television about bin men. Real bin men. Nothing to do with Edward Woodward. Real people, a documentary.
Oh, yeah.
And the people who made it, God help them, want to come and have a look around the factory.
Oh, make a program about us.
I don't know. Then get the phones, I'm going for the fag.
Philippa,
No,
I think I've left them on the table.
no,
So, we might be on the telly.
They make a docu-show about us. I can become famous. Oh,
Yeah, like that girl that tripped up on that discussion programme.
Yeah, it says it here, look. Trips up once on the television, and now she's seen here, relaxing in the Seychelles in lycra flat-fronted trousers at $89.99 with her boyfriend Olive.
Clive!
I should have gone to Specsavers.
Let's go back to the 1970s. The Vietnam War came to an end at long last, and instead, America gave the world the Watergate scandal. McDonald's hamburgers reached our high streets, and computers were rearing their ugly heads. Elton John, Queen, and Rod Stewart were on the record labels. Jaws and Star Wars were the hot tickets, and Annie and Evita were on the London stage. The most significant happening for us here, though, was the birth of our city, Milton Keynes. Peter Bush remembers a chap who saw it all beginning.
Good evening, all. I wonder how many of you can remember before all that lot were out there. You know what they call Central Milton Keynes?
Do you remember? Well, when I were a lad, that were all green fields. My father worked in them fields before I did, but he died of pneumonia. There were no antibiotics in those days. So that left me with my mother and 2 young sisters, and no wage earner. And there were no benefits in those days. People called them the good old days, but these are the good old days. Mother used to make a few shillings by making lace, but weren't enough to keep us. So I started work on the farm where my father had been. But there weren't much good about it when I started on Good Friday. It were nothing good. Well, the farmer came along and he gave me a job. Picking up stones in a bucket. And so I walked up along Top Field, that'll be about where Marks and Spencer's is now. I walked over that field, picking up stones. I kept looking around, there were more of them. And not too much later, the farmer came to see what I was doing. And he gave me a real tongue lashing. You young fool, he said. You don't wander around the field like you lost. You walk crossways. One way, then the other, in straight lines, picking up the stones. Now he says, get on with it, and don't you stop till sundown. God, my goodness, that bucket was heavy. I put them stones in, and I'm sure by the time I went home, my arms were 2 inches longer. I spent the summer and the autumn helping with haymaking and harvest, and because I were willing, they didn't treat me bad. By heck, we had some laughs. There must have been around 10 of us in those days. Today, there probably only 1. My first winter on the farm were real hard. I was put down on Soggy Bottom, pulling Swedes. That field down the bottom there, where Sacklow roundabout is now. I were working down there with the old fellow, and he was really ready for the knacker's yard. We had to pull the Swedes and then cut their tops off, and then put them in Swedes heaps, ready to be loaded onto the carts that came down from the farm in the afternoon. And they would take them back to feed the cattle. I used to hold the horses' heads. Oh, I loved that. And I used to lead them on as they filled the bags on the cart. Me and that old fellow was down there most of the winter. Cold and wet were most of the time. We wrapped sacks around us to keep the worst out and sheltered under the edge at meal times. Food was short. Money was short. Often we had no cheese or bread. We used to slice up a bit of Swede, and if we had a crust, we'd shove it in there and make a sandwich. Swede, just like the cattle had. That old fella, he were a miserable old bugger. If I stopped working to blow on my hands, he would shy a Swede at me, right in the back of me. He were a blooming good shot. I think he were jealous, because I was young, and his future were all behind him. He died that spring, just wore out. The governor noticed that I was good with horses, and next year I was given a job with a wagoner. He taught me how to work the horses and look after them. When I was 16, I were given my own pair to look after. 2 beautiful Scheller mares, Molly and Sally. And they'd do anything for me. I remember going ploughing Top Ridge, about where John Lewis is. I got there and found I'd left the lines behind. They're the cords we used to steer the horses. I didn't waste time and go down to fetch them. I just guided the horses, just using my voice, all day long. Lovely they were, so beautiful to manage. I started courting Sarah Jane when I were 18, and in the summer evenings, if ever I had time off, we'd go for a walk and often end up canoodling under the tree in corner top field. When they built that lot, they left it standing. It was that oak tree on the grassy area just west of that point thing. I used to go and sit under it still a few years ago. Just sit there remembering Sarah and Jack and the old days and how everything was. But nothing stands still, do it? They built even more shops now, and the Daft Apers built right over that tree. And it stood right in the centre of Middleton Place. Well, by heck, that gave it a shock. I tried sitting there by it in Middleton Place, but it was no good. Once that tree weren't touched by the wind, the memories, they just wouldn't come. And I reckon that old tree lost the will for living. You can't see it then no more. Oh, I'm rambling on here. I better get off now, got things to do. But I may see you later. Bye for now.
Now it's your turn. We're going to round off the first half with a short sing-along, after which there'll be a 30-minute interval before we all return for the second half. So here now are the harmony group to lead us in some of the songs we've all enjoyed over the years. The words are printed in your programme.
want to see you singing or hear you singing.
Give your wings and fly up high. to feel the rhythm of life, to feel the powerful beat, to feel the tingle in your fingers, to feel the tingle in your feet. Oh, the rhythm of life is a powerful beat, puts a tingle to your fingers and a tingle in your feet. Rhythm on the inside, rhythm on the street, and the rhythm of life is a powerful beat. Oh, the rhythm of life is a powerful beat, puts a tingle to your fingers and a tingle in your feet. Rhythm on the inside, rhythm on the street, and the rhythm of life is a powerful beat. To feel the rhythm of life, to feel the powerful beat, to feel the tingle in your fingers, to feel the tingle in your life. When you've got the rhythm of life, of life, of life, of life.
And so we moved to the 1980s. Maggie Thatcher was Prime Minister and she battled her way through the miners' strike. Mobile phones appeared on the scene. The Berlin Wall came down. Michael Jackson, David Bowie, Madonna and Barbara Streisand sang the songs. And Andrew Lloyd Webber gave us those wonderful musicals, Phantom of the Opera and Les Miserables. The NHS was having a tough time. And with patients like these two, is it any wonder? Here's a sketch with David and Graham playing Sissy and Ada. Why does this all seem so familiar?
Thank you, Doctor. Are the suppositories the same length? Sissy! Well, well. Fancy seeing you at the doctor's. Is it the same old trouble? What trouble? Women's trouble. You know, last year, when you had to undergo a hysterical rectomy.
That's all okay now after the manipulation, thank you very much. Although I don't feel very well. In fact, if I put my mind to it, I could be quite ill indeed. No, it's my Frank I've come about. He's got a verruca. It's a very big one, you know. Fancy. Oh, he can hardly get his shoe on for it.
Has he tried tucking his trouser down his sock?
Oh, no. It's much too painful for that. He doesn't know what to do with it. He can't just hop down here, you know.
Well, I have every faith in Dr. Patel. He's just come from Bombay. He's a chapati, you know. When I saw him about my bird, I told him exactly what was wrong with him.
And what did he give you for it?
His deepest sympathy.
Knowing your bird, you need all the sympathy you can get. What has the scoundrel been up to now?
Well, it happened 2 days ago. Well, 2 nights ago, actually, after he'd been to the pub.
Oh, I'm surprised he can afford to go to the pub, being on the dole as he is.
Oh, the landlord likes my bird, because he once cured a ball on his whippet's neck. And some nights he lets him in to suck the beer mats.
That's how he's lost all his teeth.
Well, he had a deep cavity at the back. Anyway, my bird was at the bar having a quart sup when his old friend from the army came in. And you know my Bert, I don't have to tell you, do I? He was one of the unsung heroes of World War II. His full story may never be told. The War Office slapped an embargo on his memoirs. My Bert was very important. Everywhere he went, he was chained to MPs. Anyway, this friend of his and Bert were trapped in a rainforest in Rangoon during the monsoon season, behind Japanese lines, with remnants of the 14th Army.
Shindies.
Oh yes, they all had that, you know, because they had nothing to eat but sedentary armadillos. And of course, as you've probably guessed, they had a few drinks too many. My Bert got home at 2 o'clock in the morning and he fell straight asleep on the toilet. He was still there the next morning. And oh, Sissy, I didn't know what to do. He'd lost the use of his legs.
Oh, I say, Ada.
Every time I picked him up, he fell straight back on the toilet.
Perhaps it was psychosomatic.
No, it was one of those old-fashioned type with a chain flush. We ended up with a crack in the pedestal. And we had to have it grouted. Anyway, I sent for Dr. Patel and he came straight away.
Well, what was the matter with him?
Who?
With your Bert. That he couldn't get off the toilet. And he had some sort of seizure.
No, his braces were trapped round the back of the...
Typical. Anyway, enough of your Bert. What's the matter with you, Chuck?
Well, I don't feel so bad in myself, you know. Though I do have this cluster of varicose veins at the back of my leg. Oh, I shall have to have a pulled through booper.
Oh, I thought you were looking a bit warm.
Well, let's face it. I wouldn't tell another living soul this, but I'm approaching the change.
Approaching the change? From which direction?
What do you mean?
I would have thought your batteries would have run out years ago.
I'd have you know that my family has a tradition of fertility. We're very fertile. My cousin Bertha copped it when she was 59. And she swears she only walked past the sausage factory.
Anyway, what are you at the surgery for?
But as I said, I have every faith and confidence in Dr. Patel. Although he's a pompadummy, Miriam came here for an x-ray to find out where the blockage was. And he gave her a Bavarian meal.
Oh, you mean a Bavarian meal?
Oh no, she kept her bra and knickers on. Anyway, I can tell you this, can't I?
My lips are sealed.
I have this very severe complaint. Every winter, I get severely chapped legs, especially on the inner thigh. It's very painful when I'm wearing a hoorah skirt with a handkerchief hem. I've tried rubbing Algispan, but it doesn't seem to do any good. And it happens every time the clocks go back. I've been in to see him now, and he's cured me in 5 minutes.
Oh, and what did he give you for it? Did he give you an injection?
Oh no, I'll show you. He cut several inches off the top of a Wellington boot.
The 1970s and 80s were probably our most fruitful decades for comedy. We'd all sit down in front of the TV with a beer, a cup of tea or a Coke on a Saturday night to watch Morecambe and Wise. Remember Angela Rippon descending those steps in that ball gown? Nobody'd ever seen her legs before. Or the two Ronnies, Ronnie Corbett and Ronnie Barker, those marching bands, dancing routines, sketches were wonderful, and Ronnie Barker's clever use of words in some of the sketches was particularly special. Ronnie Barker's laid-back armchair monologues were very popular in the series. Here's Charlie to remind us.
Good evening, everybody. We'll get this right one day. It's obvious it's a chair monologue. Right, I was rummaging through a box of old documents the other day, and I forgot what I was looking for. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I'd had a little tiff with my wife, and there was a little bit of high-spirited name-calling. And I stormed out the room to get my birth certificate. Actually, I never did find it. When I asked my mother, she confessed that when I was a baby, I was so ugly. That's not right, is it? Anyway, I was so ugly, I never had a birth certificate. I had an invoice. And she told me a little story, that's a little bit Max Bygrove's there, I hope, but about once when she took me on the bus and the conductor came along for the fares and he looked at me and said, "Mrs, that's the ugliest child that I've ever seen." A joke is a joke, but that kid is frightening. So she gets rather upset and starts having a few tears. "Oh no. She said, "Stop the bus, I want to get off." "Oh," he said, "with pleasure, madam." And she gets off, sits on her seat outside the public house, and she's still crying. "Oh no, oh dear. Anyhow, she's sitting there a few minutes, and she's making so much noise that a man comes out of the pub and he says to her, "What's the matter, love?" And she's so upset she can't speak. So he says, "Stay there, I'll get you something to cheer you up a bit." And he goes back in the pub, and he comes out later, and he said, "Here you are, love, I've got a brand interview and some nuts for the monkey." So as a child, I've read there's a very sheltered life. In fact, every time I see a picture of a prisoner with a blanket over his head, holding hands with a policeman, it reminds me of going shopping with Mummy. But I was fortunate that the first school I ever went to was a pretty soft school for pretty soft kids. Good heavens! At St Pans's Primary, you could have a reign of terror with a balloon on a stick. We was also paying protection money to the Brownies. We were so upset. We were not upset, we were so sensitive that when the teacher said "ding dong dell, pushing down the well," 6 of us fainted. But I remember the worst thing that could happen to you was to be selected for the school football team. On a good day, we used to lose by 100-0. St Pans's was never really sports orientated. And we played football, our school strip was grey overcoats and black galoshes, and our trainer was the district nurse. I often think, though, we must have been an inspiring sight as we swept down the field in a 4-2-1 formation. It was a pity though, we never had the ball with us. And our goalkeeper though, poor fellow, he never had a chance. He could only get one out of the ball because his mother was holding the other one. At half time though, we used to have bread and milk and a good cry. We were so nervous that if we were given a penalty, we'd let the other team take it for us. Sometimes we used to stay out during half time and put a fuse through our own goal so the other team would like us when they come back on. I recall though that the last time I ever played was against a local team, St Margaret's. Oh boy, were they big girls. Anyhow, I think some of them though had never seen a boy before. They ran onto the field and they caught our winger and tried to take him to pieces to see how he worked. Poor old Larry Grayson has never been the same since. Anyway, that is nothing at all to do with what I was going to tell you about. What I was going to say was that while me and the old pair were looking through some old papers, the old pair came across, oh, that's rather an unfortunate phrase that, she found an old invitation to the old boys' reunion at my senior school. That was the old Martin Borman Comprehension. That was one of the most exciting evenings I ever remember. It all started very formally. We all sang the school song, Lily of Laguna. And our headmaster, he led us into 3 cheers for penicillin. Anyway, this is what I was coming to. It was at the reception afterwards that I met this fantastic girl. Beautiful face, fantastic figure. I stood there a little while and I said, can I get you a drink? Oh no thank you, I don't drink. I said, how about a smoke then? She said, no thank you, I don't. Can I take you home? Oh yes please, she said, I would like that. So we get to her house about 10 minutes later and we're standing in the doorway and I said to her, you're the most wonderful girl I've ever met. You don't drink or smoke, you're beautiful, intelligent and have a wonderful sense of humour. She said, I'm also very passionate. Would you like to come in? She opened the front door and there lying in the hall was a dead horse. I was told to say that very clearly. Being a Cockney, it was a bit awkward. Anyhow, I said, what's that? She said, I never said I was tidy, did I? Anyhow, thanks for listening.
And so we move to the 1990s. Remember Nelson Mandela's famous walk to freedom? East and West Germany were reunited. The Channel Tunnel opened between Dover and Calais. And Princess Diana was tragically killed in a car crash in Paris. Miss Saigon was on the London stage. Saving Private Ryan and Titanic were the best films of the decade. And the Spice Girls were on top of the pops. Another film which caught our imagination at this time was The Full Monty. No, girls, don't get your hopes up. 2000, the millennium. Remember all that hoo-ha over the dome? Apple introduced the iPhone. Barack Obama was inaugurated as America's first black president. And we all saw those horrific attacks of 9/11 on New York's World Trade Center. Spamalot and Wicked were musicals of choice. Brokeback Mountain and Pirates of the Caribbean hits on the big screen. But again, you know, none of us can remember any of the songs. But Milton Keynes Shopping Centre is always the place to be in this area. And maybe this kind of conversation between two of our citizens could well have taken place. Here are Rita and Marion to show you what we mean.
Hello, Mrs. H. Long time no see. Been shopping?
Well, what do you think this is? Weightlifting?
I've been shopping as well.
We always shop on a Friday, Jim and me.
Fancy taking your husband shopping with you.
Well, we don't mind the shopping centre because he can sit down outside and wait for me. I mean, he never went shopping with me when we lived in Manchester. I mean, where could he sit down in the middle of Piccadilly?
Where is he then, your Jim?
Forgot his fags. Typical. Left me on my own with all this lot.
I never take my bird shopping with me. Not anymore.
Why ever not?
Well, he gets lost.
Gets lost?
He does. You should see him. He wanders up and down between the counters, looking all lost and pathetic.
Well, you could ask him to meet you at the checkout or outside, like my Jim does.
No, he forgets what I look like.
Forgets what you look like?
He does.
And you believe him?
I do. You should see him. I've seen him, sorry. When I used to take him shopping in the big stores, I'd watch him following some woman out into the street, and it wouldn't be me at all.
Well, I can understand that.
So I don't take him anymore.
Where is that husband of mine? I expect you see enough of your Bert in the evenings. My Jim don't spend an evening at home these days. He's always up at the leisure centre playing snooker. Every night till 10:30. No, I tell a lie. Fridays and Saturdays he's at the pub playing darts. I tell you, Mrs. E, I hardly ever see him in the evenings. Oh, it's such a relief.
Now you mention it, I haven't seen much of Bert lately.
Why, what does he do?
Bert, he's up in the loft.
What?
Up in the loft.
Oh, I thought you said up aloft. Gave me a shock for a moment. Thought you'd meant he'd passed on.
No, I would have told you that.
Here, wait a minute. You haven't got a loft.
We have now.
You've got one of them flat roofs.
We did have till a month ago, and now we've got a proper roof on.
On account of the indoor rainfall.
Yes, that's right. Bert wouldn't be up in the loft if we didn't have one.
You must have been in a right old mess for a while then.
Yes, we had workmen in for weeks.
That was nice for you.
Oh, it was lovely. We used to have cups of tea and chats with the workmen. And there was this one particular one. He was so handsome. Used to work with his shirt off. He did. He was all muscles, sunburn. Oh, he was gorgeous. And then one day, Bert was late home. I looked at him, he looked at me, and I saw that look in his eye.
Well, what happened?
Well, I ran. I did half run. I have never run so fast in my life. I couldn't catch him up.
Well, still waters. Come on, Jim. It don't take that long to pick up a packet of fags. What's your bird doing up in the loft then?
I don't really know.
Maybe he just wants to get away from you for a bit.
I think it's some sort of do-it-yourself. Anyway, when we listened to the Archers this afternoon, he went up and I came out shopping.
Well, as long as he's doing something useful up there.
Wait a minute. It wasn't this afternoon he went up. It was yesterday evening.
Yesterday evening? And you've not seen him since?
No.
Oh, not exactly under your feet all the time, is he? More like above your head.
It must have been yesterday evening, because it was the repeat. It was the first time I'd heard about Eddie Grundy. And, well, he's still up there.
Well, never mind Eddie Grundy on the Archers. What about your bird?
Well, he's still up there.
I can't believe that. What's to stop him getting down?
Well, oh, no, I've just remembered.
What?
I took the ladder away.
What on earth for?
To get to the top shelf in the kitchen. There was a box of chocolate Brazil nuts up there, and oh, I did fancy them. I do love a chocolate Brazil, don't you?
Never mind about the chocolate Brazils. Bert can yell, can't he?
I wouldn't hear him from this far away.
But when you're home.
Not with the telly on.
Well, hadn't you better get home double quick? He might be getting a bit desperate by now.
Yes, perhaps I'd better.
Oh, I should think so too. Anyway, I can see my Jim coming. So go on, off you go.
Yes, all right. Lovely talking to you, Mrs. H. Take care, then. See you next week. Oh, I've forgotten to get my lottery ticket. I better get that now. You never know. I might win this week.
It's 2017, so now we're right up to date. Last year, we celebrated the 400th anniversary of the death of our greatest ever writer, William Shakespeare. We've all seen his plays, his films, we've studied his stuff when we were all at school, but we shouldn't really hold that against him. He was a great Englishman, and tonight, Shenleywood Village pays tribute to William Shakespeare. Here are Steve and Pat with a catchy little ditty in his honour, and then Rodney is going to explain why Shakespeare should never have been as difficult as it might have seemed.
Shall I go to the variety show, shall we? Brush up your Shakespeare. Start quoting it now. Brush up your Shakespeare, and within you way well. Just declare the few lines for what they love, and they think you're a hell of a fella. If First she did things well, just when I know that all's well that ends well. Done this. Brush up your Shakespeare and we'll all
Hold on, my fine fellows. Fine fellows. It's a lot simpler than you think. You are all using the words I left you all of the time. Let me show you what I mean. Anybody know what this is? I mean, they told me it was a sporran, but I can't get my way in there. I've got no way to get my hanky. Anyway, let me show you what I mean. If you cannot understand my argument, and you declare it's all Greek to me, if you claim to be more sinned against than sinning, if you remember your salad days or have ever acted more in sorrow than in anger, then you are quoting Shakespeare. If something you once lost vanished into thin air, if you ever refused to budge an inch, suffered from green-eyed jealousy, played fast and loose, or been in a pickle, then again you're quoting Shakespeare. If you've ever made a virtue out of necessity, insisted on fair play, knitted your brow, suffered from, I think we've done that bit, slept not a wink, or stood on ceremony, if you've taken cold comfort or been given short shrift, then again you're quoting Shakespeare. If you've ever declared something to be a little better than I saw, lived in a fool's paradise, seen better days, or had too much of a good thing, then the more fool you, because it's a foregone conclusion that you, as luck would have it, are quoting Shakespeare. If you think it's early days, or decide to clear out bag and baggage, or if you think it's high time, or that that's the long and the short of it, if you believe the game is up, the truth will out, or you've told somebody that they're a tower of strength, then again you're quoting Shakespeare. If you've ever woken up at the crack of dawn, suspected foul play, or said good riddance to someone without rhyme or reason, then despite the fact that they think you're being a bit bloody-minded, give the devil his due and send the blinking idiot packing. Because by Jove, oh Lord, tut tut, for goodness sake, what the dickens, but me no buts. You're quoting Shakespeare. And on that note, I think we three will retire to the Globe for a noggin or two. Hold on a moment. I see a fellow coming who we heard from earlier. Here he is. Good evening, sir. Sire.
Don't see many of them around here. Glad to see you still here. Just wanted to carry on my story. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah, that's it. Sarah and I, we were married in 1933 when I was 23. My mother had married again by then. Sarah and me, we lived in a tied cottage in Milton Keynes village. To us, that was Milton Keynes. Then our son Jack, he was born in 1935. I worked with the horses until the end of the war, when the old governor handed the farm over to his son when he came home from the army. Young Captain George said his father was all behind the times and things had to move on. Well, as they say, it's a stiff branch that doesn't bend with the wind. So I bent with the storms of change. Still, it broke my heart when the horses had to go. And I still don't like to think what happened to them. Then do you know what? Young Captain George bought me a brand new Fordson Major tractor from Cooper's over in Newport Pagnell. It had a 4-furrow ransom plough. By heck, it were a beauty. But then we soon had to take one of the furrows off, because in this Buckingham soil you couldn't pull it. Man's land round here it is, not like that boy's soil in other places. Still, I soon got the hang of it, and if I do say it myself, I could plough pretty straight after just a short while. I've got to admit, I even enjoyed it, because when you're used to ploughing an acre a day, doing 8 feels like flying. And I like speed. But maybe that's where my Jack got it from. He were killed on his motorcycle down at Loughton. Only 20 he was. And my Sarah never really got over it. She died in 1960, and the doctors really didn't know what was wrong with her. But I think it were a broken heart. After Sarah left me, I just lived to work, spent all my time in these fields round here. Then change came. It was about this time of year, I guess it were 1965. I was ploughing Top Ridge, you know, John Lewis End. It were a foul day, spitting with rain, the ground were saturated. Shouldn't have been ploughing by rights, but I was doing the last field, and the captain wanted it ploughed to catch any frost that may still be there, so to make a bit of tilt to sow the barley in March. Anyhow, this young chap, carrying a briefcase, climbs over the gate and starts walking along the headland as I was approaching. I remember the clay sticking to his feet. He looked like one of those clowns with enormous boots wading in glue. I got to the headland and stopped, because I were only too glad to warm my hands on the exhaust pipe. Cabs were a rarity in those days. I were wearing one of the governor's old deerstalker hats. I had it tied on with me red scarf that Sarah left me. And I also had an old greatcoat with sacks round about to keep the weather out. And this young chap in a silly suit and with a pair of shorty wellies, we must have looked in rare. The long and the short of it is, this young fella got some maps out of his briefcase and gets me to hold him and sort him out and show him just where he is. And there was a good view from the top ridge, all along the countryside. There he was standing, and where we were was right in the middle on his map. Central, you might say. Over the map of the countryside there were loads of other lines drawn, and they told me they were the shape of the new city that was going to be built there. Well, I told him he must be barking mad. Why, the council wouldn't let Captain George build a porch on my cottage. let alone build a new city. I told him I'd eat this deerstalker hat if it ever happened. Little did I know. Now, when I sit on those benches at the side of Middleton Hall, looking across toward John Lewis's, I get this picture come into my head of a wind-swept, muddy hilltop field with strangely contrasting characters sheltering leeward of the tractor and plough. The younger man with clown boots, trying to keep a map open in the wind, while an older man is pointing out landmarks in the open countryside. I'm damn glad I lost that deerstalker soon afterwards. I might have got indigestion. Anyhow, I expect you want to get on. Nice of you to spare the time. God bless you.
We've all enjoyed the work of Victoria Wood over the years. We've already seen Dinner Ladies this evening. She wrote a lot of stuff with Julie Walters, things like Acorn Antiques, and worked with actors like Celia Imrie and Duncan Preston. Her Christmas specials, her evenings with Victoria Wood, and Victoria Wood, as seen on TV, attracted huge audiences. It was a great shock when she died last year, still very young. Here now are Brian and Maureen with one of her funniest sketches, Let's Do It, to remind us of that wonderful talent.
Sat one night, the sky was clear, the stars were bright, the wind was soft, the moon was up. Frida drained her cocoa cup. She licked her lips, she felt sublime. She switched off Gardner's Question Time. Barry cringed in fear and dread as Frida grabbed his tie and said,
let's do it while the moon is bright. I'm feeling a feeling, I've really got that bit tight. I'm on fire with desire, I could hang half the tenors in the real voice choir. Let's do it tonight.
Can't do it, I can't do it, I don't believe in too much sex. This fashion for passion drives us really bananas. No derision, my decision, I'd rather watch the spinners on the television. I can't do it tonight.
Let's do it till our hearts go boom. Go native, creative, living in a living room. This folly is jolly, bend me over backwards on a hostess trolley. Let's do it tonight.
I can't do it, the heavy breathing days have gone. I'm older, feel colder, there's other things that turn me on. Stop pouting, stop shouting, you know I pulled a muscle when I did that routing. Can't do it tonight.
Let's do it, have a night of crazy love. I'll strip bare, I'll just wear stilettos and an oven glove. Don't starve a girl of this palaver, dangle from the wardrobe in your balaclava. But let's do it tonight.
I can't do it. Don't dangle, for me to dangle, the arms have never been that strong. Stop nagging, I'm flagging, you know as well as I do the pipes need lagging. I can't do it tonight.
Let's do it, have a night one romance. This will be the last big chance, sighted. Milton, to eat Stilton, to roll the gay about and all the tufted Wilton. But let's do it tonight.
I can't do it, I've other little jobs on hand. Don't rouse around the house, I've got a busy evening planned. Stop pouting, stop shouting, you know I pulled a muscle when I did that routing. I can't do it tonight.
Let's do it while I'm in the mood. 3 cheers, it's been years since I caught you even semi-nude. Be plastic, gymnastic, where you bang your boyfriends with a loose elastic. Let's do it tonight.
I can't do it, I must refuse to get undressed. This don't use me, me mother sent a note to say you must excuse me. I can't do it tonight.
Let's do it, I mean I absolutely must. I won't accept you, I want to tempt you, I want to drive you mad with lust. No caution, just contortion, smear an avocado on me lower portion. Let's do it tonight.
I can't do it, it's really not my cup of tea. I'm harassed, embarrassed, I wish you hadn't picked on me. No dramas, give me pyjamas, the only girl I'm mad about is Judith Chalmers. I can't do it tonight.
Let's do it, I really want to run amok. Let's wiggle, let's jiggle, really make the rafters rock. Be flighty, calm out the bars of the flame uniting. Let's do it tonight.
Let's do it, I really want to rant and rave. Let's go, 'cause I know just everyone to behave.
Not meekly, beating on the bottom with the woman's weekly. Let's do it tonight.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show. All the cast has enjoyed the rehearsals for this, our last item, and we're sure that you will too. It definitely shows what a wonderfully alive, but also a little bit crazy sort of place Shenleywood Village is. It's definitely close to home, and it's called Old Folks Grieving. No, wait a minute. That should read Old Folks Grooving. Sorry, here are a few of your friends doing what they do.
Let's get ready to rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Just grab the mic, just grab the mic. Psych. The mic, just grab the mic. Sight. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Get ready and rumble. Everybody rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Get ready and rumble. Everybody rumble.
Yo, tell me what I really want. Tell me what you want, what you really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really want.
We hoped you liked our little show, and now your friends will take a bow. To end our show tonight, your harmony group will sing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life before your cast and crew take a bow to Morecambe and Wye's wonderful signature tune, Bring Me Sunshine. So please now welcome on stage the harmony group.
Some things in life are bad. They can really make you mad. Other things just make you swear and curse. But when you're chewing on life's gristle, don't grumble, give a whistle. And this'll help things turn out for the best. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.
If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. So you're feeling in the dumps. Don't be silly chumps. Just
put your lips and whistle, that's the thing. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. If life's a load of trouble, just take it at the double and give it every little thing you've got. Life's just a laugh and a joke, so keep it laughing. Remember that the last laugh is on you. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.
And now, please, your artistes, John, Pat, David, Graham, Sue, Linda and Justine, Alan, Rita, Marion, Maureen and Brian. And the dinner ladies, Rita, Debbie, Annie, Dawn, David, and Jean. The Shenley Rockers, Linda and Stuart, Brian and Maureen, Mike and Marion, Dawn and John. Our own early Milton Kensian, Peter Bush, and of course Charlie. Our dancers, the Full Monty and our groovy street dancers. Our singers, Pat and Jill, both still a little bit busy, so just give them a wave. And of course, William Shakespeare himself, with his troubadours, Pat and Steve. Where are we, guys? Of course, we couldn't have done any of it without our stage manager, that model of patience and practicality, John, and his hard-working team, David, Mike, Brian, and Doug. that's audio-visual. Boys, I use the word lightly. Who looked after our sound and lighting? Alan, Stuart and Pat. Give them a wave. Rodney was compere, and Pauline Wardrobe Mistress assisted by Di and Marion. Lastly, the four people without whom this show would definitely not have made it to the stage were Maureen, our production manager, Jill, our musical director, and of course Annie, our wonderful director. We've all had a wonderful evening, and we hope that you have too. So please now join us in Morecambe and Wye's wonderful signature song, Bring Me Sunshine.
Bring me sunshine, bring me